Hi everyone, welcome back to a new budget video here on my channel. So today we are going to be wrapping up the budget for the month of June, as well as going over my debt trackers and doing what I call a financial audit of the month. This is something new that I've developed when I wasn't recording for YouTube. So we're gonna go over everything today, and I didn't upload the other week just because my pay got messed up and then I got busy, and so life happened, but here I am. The very first thing we're gonna start with is looking at how the rest of my income went for June. So I was supposed to get paid on the 19th from my full-time job, but that got messed up, so I got paid a day early and I got paid about $250 less than what I was supposed to. So I had to put in a request to have it fixed, and I ended up getting paid the remaining amount on that Friday. So I didn't get my whole paycheck until I think the 21st. And because of that, I ended up getting a little bit more than I expected to. I think because the second part of the paycheck was a little bit smaller, so they take less taxes out. So I think that's why I ended up getting a little bit more total. I was expecting to get around $1,070 for my paycheck, but I ended up getting about $1,099. And this is how I broke it down. So my variable expenses did get the $360 like it was supposed to. My gym membership did get paid for $27. I did pay my Chase credit card of $240. And then for my taxes, I only paid $82 out of the $443. That was for a couple of reasons. So I actually got the official notice in the mail about my repayment plan for my taxes for last year, and it stated that the official date to start paying the payment plan is actually July and not June. So I ended up paying about $82, and I only paid $82 to make it the exact amount that would equal 6 months worth of my minimum payments. So each month, $442 is going to be taken out from my checking account to repay it. And so I paid total $282 to reduce the total loan amount to equal the exact amount of 6 months worth of the minimum payments. So from now on, I'm not going to really pay extra on this. I'm just going to allow the minimum payments to get withdrawn. My main focus right now is my credit card, but that's a different story. So I only paid $82, and then I ended up taking a unplanned trip to Flagstaff, which I set aside $200, but I did spend more than that, and we'll see exactly how much in a little bit. But unexpectedly, my family planned a get-together, I believe, last weekend, and originally it was just going to be a day trip, which turned into a night trip. And I don't regret it, but I do sort of regret how much I spent. Again, we're gonna go over that. And then $190 went to my Chase credit card. So I do make extra payments to my Chase credit card. As you can see, I did here again as well with extra income. But when we go over my spending in a little bit, you'll see that I overspent this month. So it wasn't really like I was making progress towards the Chase credit card balance. It was really just like covering what I spent, which sucks, but we're gonna again go over that. So I did end up getting $250 as well on the 27th. So $100 came from my sister from the amount she's repaying me for, and then $150 came from my online income, so a total of $250, and that went towards my Chase credit card. Okay, so next I think we will go over debt. So these are the official amounts that I owe towards my debt, and like what kind of debts they are and all that. I was gonna say good stuff, but bad stuff. Okay, so we have my very first debt at my taxes balance of $2,210. And again, that $2,210 when divided by 6 payments of $442 should equal out to 0, but that's what we're at now. Okay, and I did bring my Chase credit card balance down to $4,699. Even though I did bring it down, I'm basically gonna bring it back up to about $5,000. Because in addition to the little bit of money that I did put aside for my Chase credit card, I did put aside additional amounts to my Chase credit card because I was planning to use my Chase credit card to order parts for my vehicle. Basically, really, I overspent $100 when it comes down to it, because if I had ordered my parts, my balance would be at $5,000, which is actually a $100 increase. So that's something that we'll talk a little bit later, but that's where it's at. And then I did pay $100 to my aunt for some money that I borrowed for school. So now that is $1,900. The good thing about that is that there is no interest, so it went down exactly $100. My student loans did go down to $2,740. Originally, I started at $3,000. My old car that I still pay is down to $995. We're getting super close to finishing that, sort of. I did actually call them and ask if I could do a settlement. That way I just like get it over and done with. But actually, after some research and like talking to a couple of people, I found that it's better to just continue paying it off instead of having a settlement on your credit. So it is what it is. And then for my car that I currently have, I have a balance of $18,944 remaining. So all of these different debts add up to my total amount of $31,488. Yep, that is where I am at. Next, I have my little tracker here for all my different debts. And we are going to fill in a couple of these. Okay, so I already did the math. So as you can see, these are the amount of boxes that we'll be filling in for each debt. And the starting balances are actually the balances that I had put on that tracker before for the month of May. And I have my little bag of highlighters here. So for my old car, we're going to be filling in 2 boxes, which equals a total of $200. Next is going to be 1 box for my aunt. Then we're going to do 2 boxes for my taxes. We're going to do none for my student loans. Chase credit card is going to get 1 down. And then lastly, my current car is going to get 1 box filled. As you can see, this is my first time filling out any boxes for this new tracker, and it actually makes me a little bit excited, just slightly. Finally starting to see a little bit of movement. Now we're going to move into the final part of the video, which is going to be my financial audit, is what I call it. So this is some general information that I would like to know at the end of each month about how my finances are going. So we'll just start from the top. So my savings balance right now is at a total of $1,848.66. I have some details here. About $1,550 of that is in my Ally account, and then about $300 of that is in my Chase account. And of that $1,800, $200 of that is actually for savings for my taxes. So my emergency funds account balance is $1,648. That has been helpful as well to make that distinction. Okay, next, my balance for my Roth IRA is $5,063.30. So I never include in my budget the amount that I contribute to my Roth IRA, because that amount gets taken out from my gross pay, and so it's never included in my net pay, and I only put in my budget my net income. But I believe I do 3%, and my company matches 3% fully. So each month, I believe I put in about, I want to say like $160, maybe like 40, I think like $40 to $50, $40 to $60 from my paychecks, and then they match it, the company I work for, and that's 2 times a month, so something like that. I think I should actually add that detail in, and I'll probably do it later. But anyways, so next is my income. For the month of June, I made $5,040.70. The majority of that did come from my online income, while the smaller amount came from my full-time job. A little bit less than last month, but it's a little bit tricky, just a little bit. So this amount, $2,891, is not exactly what I made in the month of June. It's just what I withdrew from my account. I actually don't know the exact amount that I made in the month of June, but typically I pull from the month before. So this comes from the amount I actually made in May. Some of it in June sometimes. It really just depends. So the $28.91 is just actually what I withdrew. And it always makes sure to leave an amount in there so I never fully withdraw. So again, it's just different. That is just what I pulled and what I wanted to be part of my income. Okay, second to last, we have my credit score, and I have currently a 679. That's according to what I can see from my Chase Bank account. I'm not exactly sure, like, truly what my true credit score is. I feel like it's kind of hard to tell with all of the different ways you can check it, but that's what it's at. And I did have a good increase this month because I did get a credit limit on my Chase credit card, and so that helped my utilization rate, which increased my credit score. Last but not least, we have my debt total, which was $31,488, which again we just went over. Next, we have my spending breakdown. I really like making this part. I feel like this really helps me see like the overall of what's been going on this month in a different way that I really wouldn't see if it was literally just numbers. Okay, so the biggest expense that I had this month was my fixed expenses, which took up about 29% of my income. That was about $1,460, and I consider my fixed expenses my insurance, my Wi-Fi, gym, Spotify, phone, and rent. These are amounts that don't change and that I never have to adjust. Next, we have my debt, which is basically all the minimum payments that I make for my debts. So this includes my student loans, both of my cars, my credit card, and then my aunt's. And that is a total of $1,098 this month. And that is about 22%. It is technically less. Like if I do only minimum payments, it's actually less because the amount I make for my credit card each month is $240, and the minimum payment is usually like $50. So in reality it is smaller, but because I choose to make more than the minimum payment, it is 22% of my income. Next expense is my variable expenses, which is 15%, and I just consider food and gas my variable expenses, and I spent $772 this month. One thing that's interesting is that in the month of May, my income was a couple $100 more. I think it was like $300 to $400 more than June, and so that means that fixed expenses and debt and spending, shopping, as you'll see here, are higher than they were in the month of May. Fixed expenses, I think they're all like 1% higher this month, but really just because my income was smaller, so it's going to take up more. Interestingly though, my variable expenses is 1% less, so I did do better this month. Even though I actually did horrible, I did still do better than the month of May because it decreased 1%, which I just thought was interesting. Next is shopping / spending, which was 9%, and that was a total of $441. So this is definitely where I need to do better because the majority of the spending money that I spent was on scrapbooking. I started scrapbooking again this month and I kind of went crazy. I did go to Ross a couple of times, and small events such as like I went to the movies with my sister, went out to eat, little things like that, but of course they add up because the total amount was $441. Next expense was a trip that I took to Flagstaff that weekend. I ended up spending about $349. That included hotel, food, and gas. Like I had mentioned before, I spent way more than I should have, and the majority of that was actually on the food. So that sucks, but it is what it is at this point. The next category was giving, which was 7%. This was $351, which included money I gave to my sister, money to my dad, and then for a birthday. Which I'm just now realizing the 351, somehow this is a little bit inaccurate because if you remember at the beginning of the month when I made my first video, I had given my sister $600 and I gave her $200 that I didn't expect to get paid back. So that's included in this. The remaining $400 she was supposed to pay back this month. She only paid back $200, and she's going to pay me the remaining $200 in July. But that remaining $200 that I didn't get paid back technically should be in here or somewhere because I gave it to her and I didn't get it back. So somehow something is wrong, but this is what I have. Savings, I have 6%. That includes my taxes, my emergency fund, and Christmas. Extra debt is 3%. That includes the amount I pay towards my taxes and my credit card. And then this itty bitty 2% is just miscellaneous, which was $135. And that includes lifts that I've been getting from my sister from work when I can't pick her up or when no one can pick her up. And then a balance that I owed apparently to my dental office that I didn't really know about. So as you can see, there is just this huge chunk of extra stuff. So once I take a look at all of this, then I kind of write down in words and analyze, well, what's going on and what happened. Which brings us to this part. So these are my takeaways after looking at my pie graph. I just wrote the thing down about my credit limit increase because I just wanted to remember that happened this month. Next takeaway I have is that I overspent on food by $184, which is an average of $46 per week that I spent over my budget. And that actually reminds me that I have to show you my spending tracker for that. As you can see here, I have the date of the transaction, where I spent it at, what it was for, what meal of the day, the amount, how much I spent that day, how much I spent that week. So as you can see here, first week I spent $117, I was under budget. Second week I spent $194, which I went over budget $74. Next week I went over by $64. Last week I went over by $46. So that is how I was able to tell exactly how much I went over by. And then I can see exactly which transactions I really need to cut out. My next takeaway is that I went to Ross and got scrapbooking stuff way too much. It's not a bad thing to treat yourself every once in a while, but I need to stop doing it so much. And it seems harmless when I'm doing it, like, oh, $15, but it's like $15 here and here and here and here. So yeah. Again, I overspent on my trip by $149, mostly on food. A huge takeaway for me is that I never say no to unexpected events. Like, in reality, I could have chosen to say no about going up to Flagstaff, but I didn't, and I typically don't say no to unexpected plans, and now I can really see like how much it affects my budget. I spent a little too much on lifts for my sister. It wasn't like an absurd amount, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but it's not something that I plan for my budget, and it's not something that necessarily needs to be in my budget. So that is just like a small takeaway. I didn't put that much aside for taxes this month, as much as I should have. Overall, I just spent way more on unnecessary stuff rather than focusing on my debt and things like that. I did, however, do better in tracking than I did in May. So I was like really consistent for a good amount, and then there were like 2 times where I got lazy for a couple of days, and so I kind of had to backtrack, and that's where things kind of get blurred a little bit. But overall, I did better, and I just need to do better in July, which leads me to my improvement opportunities. So these are kind of just like solutions to things that I realize I need to do better in. So when it comes to spending on my food, I decided this month in July, I'm only going to buy coffee 3 to 4 times a week. So I'm planning to bring my Keurig in to work. I have a whole bunch of coffee pods still, and I have creamer at work, and that I literally intended to use. So I'm going to make coffee here a couple times a week instead of getting coffee every single day. And of course, I just need to spend less on food, which really I just need to be more mindful about what I'm purchasing, when I'm purchasing, how many times I'm purchasing. No more Ross, and definitely need to chill on buying scrapbooking material. I also need to stick to my budget for special events, such as like my Flagstaff trip. I should only do bare minimum and don't be extra, because I tend to do that sometimes. So I just need to keep this in mind when making my budget for July. I need to restrict lifts that I get from my sister, not necessarily cut her off, but just be more mindful, not be so weird about not asking her for the money for it. I feel like just because I'm the oldest sister, I need to pay for it, but I need to practice asking her for the money more, which I guess we'll just kind of see how that goes. Overall, just rethink and reconsider before spending money. Continue tracking my spending. My goal is to take 5 minutes every single day to make sure that I'm updated. It really doesn't take that long if I do it daily. When it builds up though and I haven't done it in a couple days, that's when it kind of stresses me out. Also, I realized I need to keep a separate log for like random transfers that are happening throughout the month. For example, like my mom will send me money or she'll request money and then send it back later, but she's not the only one. Like, it happens multiple times with different people, so sometimes that gets a little bit blurry too, and I really need to stay on top of that because a couple of dollars can like go missing that way. And that is pretty much it. Not super proud of the month of June. Definitely see where I could do better, and so hopefully I'll apply all of this to my budget for the month of July, and that video will be up soon as well. I'm just finalizing some things for it. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope I explained things in a way that you could follow along easily. If you have any questions, you can just leave them down below and I will try to answer them the best I can. I hope your budget for the month of June went well. I hope you met all of your goals. Let's all learn from our struggles this month and do better in July. All right, see you soon.